it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So we have a repeat guest, a dear friend, a leader among leaders, and somebody who I consider myself a trusted resource, a trusted advisor, and somebody who is in the know and a leader in so many rights. Stacy Francis is the CEO of Francis Financial, a fee-only boutique wealth management, financial planning, and divorce financial planning firm dedicated to providing ongoing comprehensive advice for successful individuals, couples, and especially women in transition, such as divorce or widowhood, which is a passion of Stacy's. I can go through all the certifications. Stacy has it all. You'll read it in the bio. Most importantly, the other piece is Stacy is also the founder of the nonprofit Savvy Ladies that I have had the joy, honor, and pleasure to know about, participate with for many years now. Stacy and I go back, we were trying to figure this out, 13, 14, 15 years. You were on, Stacy, as I welcome you, you were on the very, very first series, because I checked this out, of the first nonprofit leadership interviews we did back in, I believe, 2018. So if anybody wants to check it out. Stacy, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you. It's so great to be back. And I'm a super fan of yours, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited for everybody listening today, too.
So I will say, I think Stacy and I started cutting our teeth networking together in New York City all those years ago, building brands where I don't know about you, but I couldn't have looked forward 15 years and see where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about what you've accomplished and where you were like when we first met all those years ago, and where Francis Financial is today?
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable journey. I had no clue that the charity would be able to grow to what it is today. I had hopes and dreams, and the same thing for Francis Financial. I started Savvy Ladies. I was quite young. I was 26.
That is young to start a nonprofit with minimal experience, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, with Zippo. Let's be honest, Ivy, Zippo experience. But what I did have is I had an absolutely burning passion that has never been extinguished, never will it be, to help women achieve financial independence, financial agency, financial knowledge. And it's because I saw my grandmother, who was one of the most special people to me in my life, find herself trapped in an abusive marriage. And I'll be honest, growing up, seeing this, I didn't understand what it's like for someone who's in an abusive relationship. I just assumed you could leave, right? He touches you, he hits you, leave. And that's not the case. And so it was a real learning experience for me. And part of that learning experience was how her finances really kept her trapped in that marriage. And so that's actually that founding story of why at such a young age, knowing nothing about creating a charity or a nonprofit, I embarked on that path. And it was really, Ivy, so that no woman ever finds herself having to make compromises in her life because of finances.
It is the scariest thing to think that anyone does not have the ability or the power, or they feel they have the ability or the power to change their situation in an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think there's every person out there in the world knows somebody.
We do. We all know someone, and it may even be someone that you don't realize that that's part of their relationship. I think that when you talk about domestic violence, the press can portray it in a certain way, a certain socioeconomic class possibly. And I will tell you that it's just as prevalent in the middle class. It's also prevalent in very high net worth marriages too. And in a lot of these cases, there's the financial abuse where money is being used as a tool of power over that person. It's just another way of having power over that person. But unfortunately, it can lead that person to feel trapped. In reality, many times truly be trapped. And that's what happened to my grandmother. She never left. She actually ended up passing away far too early. She never got to meet my kids. And she passed away because of the abuse. And so I'm absolutely passionate about this work. And Savvy Ladies grew from just a kernel of a dream to a charity that now works with tens of thousands of women pro bono each year. And I'm really proud of where we're at, the work that we're doing, and how much of an impact that we're making in women's lives.
So I have to ask you, I have a lot of questions. Which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Savvy Ladies of Francis Financial. And then as a leader, especially as a young leader, how do you grow two organizations at the same time? Usually
Yeah.
business-wise, they say, oh, no, you have to grow one and then the other, right? You have to get one to a certain point before you can grow a second business. So my first question is, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Savvy
Yeah.
Ladies, Francis Financial. And then we'll go into, how do you manage to grow two organizations?
Yep. The first was the charity. And something that I had no clue about in my early 20s is that it doesn't matter how powerful your mission is. It doesn't matter how important your work is, unless you have metrics and a wonderful record of being able to show impact. You're not going to be able to be successful at achieving grant and foundation donations or even individual donations, let alone, you have a 26-year-old at the helm of that. So I actually started Francis Financial, my for-profit wealth management firm, which I have an absolute ball in. We primarily focus on higher net worth women who are going through divorce and need someone to help them, really run the numbers for their matrimonial attorney, even testify in court, or a woman who maybe might be on her own because she hasn't gotten married or her partner maybe have passed away. And we help them with comprehensive financial planning, wealth management. I'm really proud. We've grown to 20 advisors.
Wow.
All of our advisors
That's impressive.
Yes, all of our advisors are women, and we have a couple fantastic gentlemen, but they work in other like trading, client service. So it's quite unique and special to have this firm. But yeah, I think a smart person would have grown, one first and then the other. But I'll be honest, I kind of didn't know what I was getting into, which was a blessing, Ivy, because it was brutally hard. I have no other words to describe how hard it was. And it was 100% worth it. And it's why, other than my children and my family, it's why I was put on this earth. It really is. But wow, it was a lot. I worked full time for Savvy Ladies as an unpaid executive director doing everything. And then full time also running Francis Financial, doing financial planning and wealth management for our clients. And I started with an intern and couldn't afford an intern, barely could even pay them. So it was a journey, Ivy, of grit, determination, tears, and all of it that entrepreneurs go through.
Yeah, and at the same time, you were growing a family.
Yes, somehow my maternity leave with my son was 3 days, and then I was breastfeeding, in the office with him. My daughter was a little better; she was 3 years later. I was able to take 3 weeks, but yeah, no, it was brutal, and I sacrificed a ton. And what I will tell you, it does show you what type of partner you have I'm very fortunate. My partner, my spouse is just a fantastic person who is my biggest cheerleader and stepped in to help me to make sure our family was thriving, even though he had an unbelievable and still does career at, a very cutthroat place called Goldman Sachs. And he did it. And we just worked really, really intentionally together as a team to take care of each other, take care of our family, so that I could then really take care of the charity and Francis Financial too.
You know, some of the things I have admired about in your journey as we've known each other over the years and kind of watched the evolution of our lives in so many ways is when we recently sat down, just, girls, and we were talking about what you've done for the future of Francis Financial. So you are a visionary, and I say this obviously because you couldn't have achieved what you have achieved if you were not.
Mhm.
Um, and then of course there is the implementation from the vision, but some of the things you have done, you are, to me, still a young, vibrant woman who's doing a lot. Your kids are still, you know,
At home with
at
us, yeah.
home. They have not flown the coop as of yet, so to speak. Yet you've worked in a succession vision for Francis Financial. You've worked in succession vision for Savvy Ladies.
Yep, yep.
You understand and have embraced, and it's so rare. I have to be honest with you. It's so rare when we meet the leaders today who don't see either succession as one of two things, either retirement or sales. But
Exactly.
that succession is long-term legacy.
Yep. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I had a really eye-opening experience for me I'm going to say about 8 years ago. A dear friend of mine that was part of my study group had not done succession planning and had this unbelievably vibrant, wonderful wealth management firm. And I saw how that limited her and to whom she could sell her practice, and limited also her employees of the type of place that they would be able to work. And what an amazing learning opportunity. And so that's when I started to get myself emotionally ready for succession and, bringing on that next gen, that next level. And I'll be honest, Ivy, it took me a good amount of time to be emotionally ready, because every entrepreneur, yourself included, knows that when you have just put your blood, sweat, and tears, your business is like your child.
Your business, it's not like it is a child.
It is,
we have
right?
grown it from a fetus to a baby, a toddler.
Toddler.
We taught it how to walk. We've taught it, right? It's gone to school. It's gotten education. It's met friends. It's right.
Yeah.
Our business goes through that journey that we've raised our kids through.
Yeah.
And it has the same umbilical cord connection to us.
It does. Yeah. And it's often, especially for entrepreneurs, it's our identity.
Yes.
Right?
Well
It's our identity. And so the first piece was really being able to start to work through the emotional part of that. And for me, that took some time, but I knew that I had to put a succession plan in place. And so then started that process. I now have 3 partners here at Francis Financial, all kick butt amazing women who have been with me for over a decade. There was no not sure who it is. It was like, these are the people that if I am stranded on a desert island, I want to be with me. And I also, for me, this is not my exit. And it's something that I really want your listeners to know, because that is the myth. I'm 50. I am in the absolute prime of my life. I'm having a unbelievable ball doing this work, and I'm going to probably be here for at least another 15 years. after that, I'm like, okay, if I'm coming in my walker and my Zimmer frame, there's going to be a point where you guys are going to have to kick me out.
Hold on a second. For the person who's crossed the 6-0 mark, I don't see a walker in my near future.
Yeah, no, not at 65, but
20 years away.
But literally, like I say 15 years because I know that's the reasonable number. But realistically, I could see me doing this for another 20, 25, 30 because I love it so much. Right.
And I happen to agree with you. I'm in this stage that I am, and I own it. And I have friends who are no longer teaching or no longer doing this. And they're like, what about you? And I was like, what you're moving away from, I love. It's like you're
moving towards.
Done, right? You were done. You were burnt. I was like, I am thriving. I am loving every day. I wake up before my alarm. Why? Because I love what I do. Why should I stop doing what I love and what fulfills me? Yet, why can't I add in more other, just incorporate like I've always have? I want to ask you this question though, because there was a conversation I recently had that you sparked something with. When you said it took me a while,
Mm-hmm.
I have numbers around what I believe the process is. When you say it took me a while at years, what was your number? Roughly.
It took me about 4 years. And I don't know if that's average, but
Not on.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I didn't know if that was more or less, but like I still have PTSD, quite frankly, from those early years and how hard it was. And, really coming to terms of, I want someone else to own this firm and stand alongside me. Someone who has done a lot of work, someone who I want by my side and is the right person, but wasn't there when, I had to say goodbye to my baby and I could barely walk because I had just given birth, right? So that's a different experience. And quite frankly, I would never, ever wish that on any of my employees, let alone partners. What I learned is they don't have to go through that trauma and that difficulty that I went through to create these two organizations to truly be committed or be great partners or great equity owners or have the same passion that I do for our clients, our employees, for growing the firm. And I will tell you, Ivy, I've never been happier in the business because I have 3 people who support me. And there have been times, Ivy, where something's going on in my personal life or whatever, where I need them to hold me up. I need their support, and they've been there. And the other misconception that a lot of owners have is that they have sacrificed financially often to be able to build what they have. And so if I'm selling ownership, it means that my percentage of the profits are going to go down. But I have to tell you, Ivy, last year, our revenue grew by almost 30%. Okay. And I will tell you, that's a big number.
That's a very big number in growth in a year.
It is
for a company that's been around that long.
Exactly. We've been around for 23 years. So our revenue grew by millions last year. This year, I have no doubt it's going to do the same. And how did it grow? Because I now have 3 people by my side who, instead of just me doing all the work, are just as committed. And so what's really interesting is that portion that I sold to them, not only have I received the payout from that, and
and then
we can get into all the details of the financing and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But what's interesting is that my actual profit payout even went up, even though it's a smaller percentage, because we're making the pie bigger.
You're making the pie bigger. If you think about it, and again, so let's talk pies. There's a 4-inch pie, an 8-inch pie, a 10-inch pie, a 12-inch pie, right?
Yeah.
100% of a 4-inch pie is less than, X percent of a 12-inch pie.
Exactly.
And the impact that 12-inch pie makes, longevity-wise, is greater. Your legacy is greater.
Yeah.
And that is, what I love about this is Francis Financial, your heart and soul of what you put into building this and the why and that personal connection. I will tell you, I remember from that networking breakfasts all those years ago we did, I remember you sharing the story of your grandmother.
Mhm.
Now, whether I have a good memory or not, we all have some good memory, we all have some bad memory, right? We all remember some things or not. I remember that story. That legacy is what is doesn't matter if it's another 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. That will continue.
Mhm.
And I respect and admire so much of the work that you did put in. And it is a 3 to 5 year process, soup to nuts, to think about succession planning
Mhm.
because you hit on a key piece. It's not just the succession plan, it's the emotional getting ready, the planning, the reconfiguring it, thinking about it, the conversation to execution is not a 6 month process, let alone a 12-month process.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
this is getting ready to have the baby we were talking about go off to college and make their own decisions, and we're gonna be greater for it.
Exactly. And I truly cannot stress this enough that you cannot go through this alone. You need to have a coach like yourself, someone to help you, to be that person, to be your cheerleader, but also to be that wise counsel. And you also need a fantastic, fantastic lawyer because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know in life,
Yeah.
and there's so many times the legal piece of looking at how to structure something, what can be done, what can't be done. And then also, I'll say when we create, I just heard this story yesterday, Stacy, and it cracked me up. Like a CEO took a hotel room, not even in a nice hotel, because they wanted to just not even leave the room. They were taking all their notes and they were going to sit in this room by themselves and plan their strategic plan.
Oh boy.
And you and I could probably have a lunch, dinner, cocktail, and coffee, and all of the above regarding this. But right, we don't know what we don't know. We see things
Yeah.
with blinders on. Right, I think about the horse race and how we have a blinder on a horse because they could only see going forward, but
Yep.
they're missing all this other information. Right, a leader misses all the other information when we surround ourselves with that team of helping us see things from various perspectives other than our own.
Hmm.
We're helping to take a giant leap forward, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I have the same terminology. I call them Central Park horses where they have the blinders, they only see ahead. And you can't do a good job or as good a job as you could if it's all just coming from your own brain. Right. And I will tell you over and over again, I've been challenged on some of the things that I think and pushed to expand my scope and embrace things that I would have never ever thought to embrace a few years ago. One of them being AI, and we're
Yeah. So, like,
exactly
in
we're
our
big
last couple of
users.
minutes,
Yeah.
I do want to touch on as a leader, one of the things that we've talked about is the technology revolution
Hmm.
and how that is increasing our efficiencies in our workplace. And I
Yeah.
know Francis Financial has just jumped in with 2 feet, which I love.
Yep.
What are some of the things you're learning in the embracing of AI and technology in productivity and efficiency? What are you seeing out there?
So we have had so much time saved. I will tell you, Ivy, and for all those people listening, AI and how you embrace it, it will never replace you. It will never replace your job. What it's going to allow you to do is to do what you do best, and that is your highest thinking, your best thinking, time spent with clients, time spent with partners, colleagues, referral partners, things like that. And so we have embraced a note taker set that does not record our meetings because there are some ethical compliance issues with recording. It also does not take a transcript. Same thing, there's ethical compliance issues with that. Instead, what it does is it summarizes those meetings, and we've been able to create a format so that it automatically will upload to our CRM, and we can create tasks for that client. And it's put due dates and next steps. So it's automatizing all of that. It even will help us prep an email to that client, giving them a summary of the things we spoke about, the next steps for them, the next steps for us for that progress meeting. Because for our ongoing clients, we're meeting with them 2 times a year, 4 times a year. It could be, more or less going through their performance report, looking at their investments. But then we're talking about, everything else with a dollar in front of it. So estate planning, taxes, looking at all their different types of insurances and emergency fund, saving for retirement, saving for college education, updating their financial plan. I mean, it is a lot of
and it's a lot
pieces.
it's
In a lot of work.
a lot of work.
Yeah. And what we find is that, so this helps us prepare for meetings now, because it will go through our CRM and it will look at all of the emails that have been gone back and forth, the updates, and where we are with each task, and it will prep that. So instead of an hour and a half, it's now taking us a half hour. The time that we spend after a meeting with our client typically is about an hour. And we've been able to, because of this, get it down to about 15 minutes. And
That's
it's
not
amazing.
sacrificing the client service piece. It's just the back end of the organization and the
Exactly.
notes and they write at that's the piece. So what I understand is, and one of the things I love about when we talk about it, is it gives us more time with our clients and less time in the weeds of the business.
And the administrative crap that adds no value, but needs to be done and needs to be done well.
So, Stacy, as we wrap, one tip or advice for women leaders.
Ah,
I know that's a whole other episode we could spend a long time on, which we'll come back to it.
yeah.
One top thing that you can.
Yeah. I think, Ivy, that you can tell, and hopefully all of your listeners can tell today, is I'm pretty darn authentic. I am who I say I am, and you get the real me. I'm going to share, and you probably have maybe even heard this or picked some tips out as I've talked about my journey. I've struggled with mental health. I've struggled with mental health over the years. Everything from being very stressed out to having imposter syndrome to having difficulty balancing my work with my personal life, because I am in love with my work and I'm in love with my personal life and my family. And I wish I had the magic bullet answer. But what I will say this is that over the years, because it's been now like 23, 24 years, what I have learned is to make sure that I have a team around me that I can talk to, confide in when I can tell that I'm not operating at my healthiest. And I can tell that I need some support to remind me. And for someone, it might be a therapist, a coach, FY. Coaches are invaluable for any entrepreneur. You have to have a coach, because it can be you can so get wrapped up in the power of your work that you can find yourself struggling, especially for women, because we do have so much on our shoulders.
There's a lot on our shoulders.
So much on our shoulders.
On our shoulders. I'll throw this out there. I spoke to my daughter the other morning before she ran off to work to see the baby, a quick little video chat. And she comes on with, I was like, and I see she's in a tank top, which is unusual. She's getting ready for work. She'd normally be dressed. She goes, so she downed 5 ounces of milk, and now she and I are wearing 5 ounces of milk. And she goes, and this is the start of Monday.
Yeah.
And
yep.
So when you talk about the importance of what's on a woman's shoulders and making sure
Yeah.
you're taking care of yourself and you're surrounding yourself with a team of, if it's therapists, if it's coaches, girlfriends, colleagues,
Yeah.
peers.
Yep.
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with you. I can't say anything to that is a top tip. I've done it for myself. I don't do this alone. I have built a emotional team as my number one team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one team is my emotional team. Who do I go to for me,
Yep.
right? Leading an organization, leading a family, taking on all of our responsibilities. And if you are a high achiever, which I think we both are, we put
Yeah.
an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves.
Yeah.
We forget to put that love on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that my mom, said to me, she passed away many years ago, but she said something that just was so smart because we're both high achievers. We both have expectations for ourselves. And she said something, she goes, would you ever put that expectation on your best friend?
Right. Beautiful.
And of course not. Why are you doing that to yourself? And it was a really wonderful way, Ivy, of putting on a different pair of glasses. You would never expect your best friend or dear loved one to be working X number of hours without having a break, or, not exercising because they want to get a little extra work in. And it was really just another way of almost thinking about yourself in the third person. And sometimes we make better decisions for how we treat other people than we even treat
Then we
ourselves.
treat
So
ourselves.
yeah, it was definitely a learning for me. And I'm still learning. I wish I had all the
We all
tools,
are.
but
It doesn't
but
matter what
yeah,
number you're at in life. We are all, I think, one of the greatest things we could do for ourselves is embrace the continued learning.
yeah,
And I'm going to say, listeners, obviously we're going to welcome Stacy back on the show because we always have so much to say. And I think our conversations are so helpful for the listeners. But I'm going to ask you to do one thing right now. Take a deep breath in and think about just one takeaway from this conversation. Not all the notes and not, oh my God, there was so much. No, no, no. Find one takeaway. Write it down anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's in your phone, if it's on a piece of paper, whatever is your thing. And then define the one action you're going to take from there. Just know every time we take that one single action, we are moving things forward for ourselves, whether it be for our businesses, our careers, our personal lives. It is all one. Thank you, Stacy, for joining me here today on Her Success Story.
thank you so much, Ivy. This was just so special. Thank you so much.
I love hanging with you. Listeners, stay tuned for more great episodes coming your way. We are also going to be having a great legal series coming up in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And we will see you next time. If this episode was helpful or impactful for you, take a moment to share it with somebody else that you think it would be helpful for. And hit subscribe so we come into your inbox every Monday with new content and new episodes. See you soon.
Don't need your approval anymore, 'cause I've got mine.